Sean McVay, 8 seasons, Rams head coach, and won a Super Bowl champ. I got a story for you. This is 52 years ago.
Yeah.
My dad worked with your grandfather at the University of Dayton.
Yeah.
So your dad was grandfather was the coach. My dad worked in computer science at the University of Dayton. He says to your grandfather, give me all of the information, give me all the tendencies of the opponent you're going to play. I'm going to put it into a computer, and I'm going to give you this. So my father was one of the first people to ever do this.
No kidding.
Yeah, so he was helping your grandfather, and I always wanted to tell you that story, that he spoke very highly of your grandfather, and the fact that he would listen to some guy in the computer science department at the University of Dayton giving all this information, and my dad would say, here's tendencies of 3rd and 8, 40-yard line, or what they did in the, inside the 20. So I always wanted to tell you that.
That's incredible. My grandpa was the most humble, just good man. He's a reason why. That's an amazing story. I can't believe I didn't know that, and that we haven't connected before to hear that. But he has afforded me opportunities, Dan, that I would never have gotten otherwise because of the way he treated people, the way that he always was so respectful, so humble, so willing to listen. I always talk about, he was, I'm going to listen, learn, then I can lead. And he was the best. He was so steady. And man, I know this, I would never be in the position that I'm in if it wasn't for the, McVay family name and legacy that he set. And you want to work as hard as you can to make him proud.
But where we are 52, 3, 4, 5 years later with analytics, can you be too analytical from a head coaching perspective?
I think so. I think it's a portion of it. And I do think that part of the really good coaches, they use that as a portion to make decisions. And then there are certain things where the feel for the flow of the game, the enemy has his say. There's some different things that you have to understand that are going on that maybe, okay, this is different than what we had planned. There's 22 moving parts. And so I think the best coaches use that as a part of their process in regards to the decision making. And then the best ones, I think they have a feel for the flow of the game where it's either confirming or, oh, this is a little bit different than we anticipated. And how do we show the flexibility and the fluidity to be able to adjust and adapt in game?
Why didn't you go to the combine?
I didn't go to the combine because really we've got such trust in our group of scouts to be able to do the vetting. And ultimately, the tape is the biggest measure for what we evaluate. And so as coaches, our scouts are a little bit more ahead in terms of evaluating the game tape. They do such a great job with the vetting process, using the numbers. And similar to analytics, Dan, this is a portion of the evaluation, but ultimately we're asking them to play football. And so we want to be able to know the human being, and then we ultimately want to be able to see what kind of football player they are and what kind of vision do we have to be able to bring them in our environment and atmosphere to help them be at their best. And so there's a lot of trust that we have in our scouts, but I do think that there can be some misleading feels that you can get in some of these 15-minute increments that aren't necessarily conducive for getting to know the total human being. And that's where there's that trust in terms of the vetting process that our scouts go through.
How close did it get to you losing Matthew Stafford? Or
it never did. It never really got close. I think the important thing, Dan, was at the start of this process, and I've been pretty open about some of the communication and the clarity that was deserved. And I had some growing up to do when we ended up making the move to acquire Matthew for Jared Goff, to acquire Matthew and move Jared Goff. And so wanted to have clear, open, and honest dialogue throughout that process. But the end goal in mind was always to be able to get him back. And I realized how much I wanted to get that solved when I've been sleeping so much better over the last couple of nights than I was the previous couple of weeks.
Take me back to the game against the Eagles. Yeah. I truly thought you guys were winning that game.
It
just felt like, but give me the play that you're running through your mind of second-guessing yourself at the end of that game.
Well, it's funny because it could have worked out. So the 3rd and 2 sequence when we're on the 13-yard line with, a minute 13 left, we ended up having a little bit of a miscommunication up front. They were in a man coverage where they were doubling Nacua. We might have had a chance if we ended up blocking it up right to be able to hit Higbee on a little whip route or maybe a second window on for Kupp from a slant route from the backside. We ended up going negative, and that put us in a 4th down situation. But not that you just hated the call, but you said, okay, if you had that over again, what would you do? Knowing that we had 2 downs, probably could have run it, move down some more clock. You're really a little bit less risk averse in terms of what ended up occurring right there. So that sequence will stick. But ultimately, I was proud of our group, Dan. I really was. And I thought Matthew played excellent. Our guys competed. I thought we got better throughout the year. And obviously, Philly's a tremendous team. They went on to convincingly do their thing in the next 2 games. But that one will sting, but I think it'll sting so much because of the growth. I don't know that I've ever been a part of a team that I felt like grew as much through so many challenging circumstances throughout the course of the year. And then obviously something way bigger than football with the fires that we dealt with the previous couple weeks.
We're talking to Sean McVay, the Rams head coach. We had a bet around here. If you've already had your morning pump and your morning lift. Todd, you said what? That Sean had already done his morning lift? Yes or no?
Yeah, I believe he has.
All right, Seton?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, Marvin?
Yes.
Yeah, Paulie?
8:30, no doubt he got a lift in.
Yeah, I'd say.
Oh, you're damn right I did.
What are you benching now?
Oh, I don't know what I'm benching. I just know that I get up. I actually go and work out with Andrew Whitworth. He's got a gym, and so I'm not working. I'm not lifting the same as him, but he's keeping me in shape both mentally and physically. And so we do that at 6 a.m, 4 days a week.
But I'm trying to think who I spoke to recently, Kevin O'Connell, and I said, you know, if we do a combine for coaches, he put you up there at the top. He thought you being competitive, that going through all 3-cone drill, of course. I don't know what you ran. What was your best 40-yard dash time?
Well, I mean, I think my dad had the handheld when I was in the 4.5s. They say 4.4. High. Let's put it this way. If I ran on an FAT at Indy, I'd be lucky to be in the 4.6s at my best.
Okay. But yeah. Dan Campbell would dominate you in the bench press, I'm guessing.
I'm not messing with Dan. There's no disputing that.
Who takes credit for Puka Nacua?
I would say this. I think, I'll tell you who was a huge fan of his. Obviously, Les was a huge fan. James Gladstone was a big fan of him before anybody. I know that I can remember when Mike LaFleur and I were really watching him and watching some of the different things that we like to evaluate in terms of aggressive hands. Really, we were looking for somebody that brought the element of toughness, competitiveness.
Explain aggressive hands. What's aggressive hands mean?
I think one of the best ways that you can evaluate aggressive hands where you're stepping to the football. When somebody's running in-breaking routes, do they stay flat? Are they friendly? Are they coming back on negative angles? Are they staying grounded through the catch? Are they able to catch it away from their frame and then immediately get up the field? I think that's where you see some of these special players that have those aggressive hands to go attack the football, as opposed to when you'll see guys running in breaking routes, they might drift up the field because they're not as confident to step back to it. That was one of our favorite things about Puka, the competitive toughness. At BYU, he was catching a lot of bubbles and running jet sweeps. And so a lot of the run after the catch was something that was enticing. And if you said, did you think he'd be this good? We had a vision. We thought he would be good. But if we knew he was going to be this good, we'd be silly to say we were going to wait till the 5th round to take him.
What does the Cooper Kupp situation hinge on?
Yeah, honestly, he's been so instrumental to our group for the 8 years. His rookie year coincides with my first year. Dan, this guy means a whole lot to me. He's been instrumental in setting the culture, establishing a legacy that is already cemented as one of the all-time Rams. I think the hard part is you have to be able to make decisions where you say, all right, where are we going? What does it look like for the collective? And how are you putting this puzzle again year in? How are you putting this puzzle together year in and year out? And so we're in the midst of finding a trade partner for him. And if we're not able to do that, then we'll see what the next steps are. But that's kind of the process that we're in, working with himself and Ryan Toner to find a trade partner.
How has fatherhood impacted your coaching?
I tell you, it's given me a purpose and a perspective. Some of the things I used to get worked up about, Dan, it's just, you're just reminded of who you want to be when you see that little boy smile at you, how you want to treat his mother, how you want to act, interact, and respond the right way to show him what a real man is. I've said this before. I can remember went through some challenging times in the 22 season, and we were 5-12. Man, it really tested a lot of the things that revealed a lot of insecurities that I had. And you're thinking about walking away from coaching. And the one thing that I think always resonates with me is that I would have never been able to look at my son and say, hey, do as I say, not as I did when adversity hits. And so you talk about making you better in every form of your life. And man, just bringing a joy and a perspective. He doesn't care about those bad play calls that I make on Sundays. He's just happy to see Dad. And I said that to Whit and Fitz when I went on their podcast, and Fitz said, yeah, not yet. Once he's old enough, he'll be criticizing you for those calls.
Can you change a diaper in the time of a play clock?
You know what? I think I can. I got to make sure I get the wipes ready if this is a number 2, though. But if this is a number 1, I can do that pretty efficiently. I think I can do that out of a clock stoppage with 25 seconds.
Good to talk to you. Congrats on last season, and nice to be able to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on, Dan.
That's Sean McVay, 8 seasons as the Rams head coach, and I thought they were going to win that game against Philadelphia.